So how did it go? Do you want to, I mean, do you want to talk about it, or I want to
Sure,
hear.
sure. So it did not go like I thought it was going to go at all. Not one bit.
Wow.
I went up
Okay.
there to process anger, and fear met me, and my shadow met me, which I was prepared to meet my shadow there, but I could not call up anger. And I did a little bit, but I was not able to really have that like anger purge like I wanted to. And I was really discouraged last night and today because it met me when I got home. Like the moment I got home, it was like trigger, 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 trigger. So I'm in it again with the anger, which is frustrating. But it really was a magical experience up there. So of course, the whole point of going there was to sit with the anger and purge, the anger and rage and heal the source of that, or at least start the process of it. And I go, and it was kind of a jarring experience to get to the cabin. The whole drive there was really nice, but once I was at the base of the mountain to get to the top, I was confused about directions, and I ended up going up a road that wasn't a road, and it was really scary, and my car was slipping, and yeah, it was just nerve-wracking to get there. And then when I finally got there, I realized how alone I was, and I realized that although I've done huge leaps in my life, I've moved across the country a couple times, like I joined the military. I've done these big leaps technically by myself, but there's always been other people with me. So even in the military, I go and there's a bay full of 50 other females. Like I don't know them, but I am not physically alone. And when I moved across the country, I had my kids. And living by myself, I've had my kids. Or even if they were with their dad or visiting my family, I had a roommate. So I've never been truly by myself. Or like if I've traveled for business, I was in a hotel where there's other people. I've never been isolated and alone. And I had intense anxiety that came over me, and intense fear. And I just sat and I actually recorded it, and I have myself doing a meditation, and I just let my throat open. And I just opened my throat, I opened my mouth, unlocked my jaw, and just started making noise, started making sound, whatever needed to come out. Then the pitch was changing, and it was going deeper and deeper as I was allowing myself to just make the noise. And finally, when I felt like enough noise had come out that there was a little bit of peace there, it felt tight in my throat. But I just put my hand near my throat. I didn't really touch my throat. And I just said, "What do you need? What is it you want to say?" And I just said, "I'm scared." I said, "What are you scared of?" And at first it was very surface stuff. I was saying, "I'm scared of being alone. I'm scared of, being up here by myself. And what if something happens and I can't protect myself?" And then it went into of not being able to protect my kids. I'm scared of, all of that. And it kept going deeper and deeper and deeper. And I just let whatever needed to come out. And then I got to saying that I am scared to succeed. And then I just started bawling. And I said, "Why are you scared to succeed?" And then my 18-year-old self came up, and she was standing in front of there. I've lived at this point in about 40 different houses. There are 2 houses that I've lived in that I consider my childhood homes because they have the most memories, and I spent the longest time living in those places. And my 18-year-old self was standing outside one of what I would consider my childhood homes. And it was the day of my mom and my brother's funeral. And I was looking at the house from the outside, just staring at the house. And I see the house, and there's this acknowledgement that we lose the house. That's what happened, is we lost the house. And I just instinctively, I don't know how to explain it, just intuitively, I knew that although I was looking at my 18-year-old self, that there was something inside my 18-year-old self, and I told it to reveal itself. Whoever you are, you're not my 18-year-old self. What is reacting to this moment in my 18-year-old self's life? And it was my 7-year-old self. And my 7-year-old self showed me a memory of my first, what I would consider my, the other childhood home. And when my mom and my dad divorced, they sold the house. And so for the narrative of 7-year-old me, cry talking about it, was I lost my house. I lost my home. And it took a long time to get another home, to feel at home, to feel safe. Even though my parents sold it, the narrative of the 7-year-old is that I lost it. So what she was saying is that I'm scared to be successful because she showed me a vision of me in my dream home and me being incompetent, in her words, to maintain the success necessary to keep the home. So she sees me making enough money and being successful enough to get into the dream home, only to lose it and not being able to maintain myself, not being competent is the word she kept using. And I had to explain to her, from my perspective now as an adult to the 7-year-old, although I felt like I lost the home, the reality was that them selling the home was the right thing to do, because they were divorcing and you divide the assets, and that's the right thing to do. That was the right call for them to do that. That was necessary. They did not lose the home. They willingly gave it up. And then I went to when my stepdad lost the home, and again, I reminded myself, although for all intents and purposes, he lost the home.
Is this when your mom and brother passed?
Died. Yeah. Right, yeah. In that situation, he didn't actually lose the home either. There were many things that could have been done. Mm-hmm. Could have gone to the bank for assistance, or could have gotten another job, could have gotten a roommate or several roommates, because there were enough rooms in the house. I mean, he could have had 3 roommates if he really wanted to save the house. The fact is that he let it go. Mm-hmm. He let it go back to the bank, or whatever exactly. I was younger then, so I'm not even positive what happened, whether he sold it. He might have even sold it, I don't know. But he let it go. Of course he did. Like, why would he stay in the same room that he shared with his wife, and my brother sleeping in the same room that he shared with his brother? Mm. Why would they stay? So of course, like, again, it's like he let it go. It was voluntary. There was no loss. The house was not lost. And I know myself, and unless something physically happens to where I can't work at all, I'm not going to allow myself to lose a home if there's anything I can do about it. And there's many things that I could do to, might not all be comfortable, but mm-hmm. there's many things that I could do to not lose a home. And so I had to kind of talk myself through that. And I said, what do you need? What do you need to feel safe? And the 7-year-old me was pretty much saying that she wanted to be a part of the process. If she wanted to help pick out the dream home or design it, whether we're going to buy it or build it, and that she wanted to have a say, not necessarily like have a say in the finances, but be a part of the process of the finances and feel like she has a voice mm-hmm. of decisions. And it's like she acknowledged that she doesn't have necessarily the skills for the finances, but she didn't want to be blindsided and feel like she was losing something again, or just in order to see like we are safe. It is okay. Like things are okay. I can settle and I can rest. So that was day one.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. And then day two, I was finally able to pull up some anger, but I know it wasn't even steam. I mean, this was some stuff, and I may or may not include this in the recording, I don't know. This was some stuff that was really heavy for me, maybe not heavy for a lot of people, but it was things I've never said out loud. I've never even allowed myself to complete the thought. I felt it emotionally, but I've never even allowed myself to think it. And part of it, I envisioned somebody that triggers me a lot, and I saw that person standing in front of me, and I saw myself, and then it was like I was a projector, and I saw the image of me overlaid over that person, and it was everything that triggers me about that person, was the overlay of me. So then take that person away, so now it's me standing looking at a projection of myself that had been overlaid on that person, and now it's just me with me looking at myself. And that was the liar, that was the cheater, that was the the selfish person. And this is the person who is very intelligent, but for my own means, I don't know how that makes sense, but it's like all these things that I don't like about myself that I'm capable of, that I've done in the past, or whether I've acted on them or not, I'm capable of them. All of those parts of me I was projecting onto that person I then looked at, and I was acknowledging its existence, and I was acknowledging why it was there. And I say, I understand why sometimes that you lie. I understand that you have a deep need to be accepted. I understand that you have a deep need to feel loved. You have a deep need to feel special. You have a deep need for personal protection, identifying all of the needs of why this part of me existed, even though I had been pushing it out of me and not wanting to acknowledge and accept that it is me and that I'm capable of these things. And I pulled it in and reintegrated it, and I was just telling it that I loved it and I accepted it for as it is. Like, I'm not going to even try to change you. I'm not going to try to make you light, because you're not. Like, it's not dark either, but I'm not going to try to get rid of it. I'm not going to try to fix it. You are as you are, and I accept you as you are. Reintegrate into me. And it did, but there is still some sort of a tug of war, because I have felt like this, I accept you, and then part of my ego says, no, you don't. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, I don't. But I'm working on it. But the biggest thing that came up is and this is me being fully vulnerable here. This is the thing this is the first time I said it out loud, so you were the first person to hear this. I was angry that I became a mother at 19. I was angry the way that the world looks at mothers. I was a child who had a child, and if I had allowed myself to live how a 19-year-old normally experiences their life at 19, that would make me a bad mother. There's no grace for mothers to find themselves. And I love my kids. I don't regret being a mother. I wouldn't change it, but I had to honor that I don't necessarily always like to be a mother. I still love them, but I don't like everything that goes along with being a mother. I don't like always being a mother. And I was angry how the perception of loss. I'm not going to say I actually lost anything, but the perception of time lost, the perception of experiences lost, the perception of freedom. Again, I fully know why I had my kids when I had them. And in reality, the truth is, I would be alive right now if I didn't have those kids when I did.
Right.
I know that, but I never acknowledged that was there.
I will say, as a mother, I had my children in my mid to late 20s, early 30s. There are moments that I have not liked being a mother. Even my son is going to be 30 and my daughter is 25. There are moments still that I do not like. So that, I think as a mother, we just have to there are good days and there are bad days in motherhood, and we know that. So don't hold that one. But that's not even what this is. I think it's the loss. And you said it's not really a loss, but it's the loss of that child, your childhood. Like 19. So when you were 21, your kids were 21, 3.
Yeah, when I was 21, I had my second child.
Oh, okay. I'm not even going to tell you what I was doing at 21 because I don't remember. So that part you did lose something, and acknowledging that and being angry, sure, yes, be pissed at you. I think that's, but I don't. Yeah, I think I know someone who her husband has MS. Actually, he's passed. She loved him immensely, but she hated. She had so much anger. This is how they spent their last 8 years of their marriage. Him not knowing her, really. Him not being able to dress himself. Yeah. And then, I don't know if this is something with MS, but he became very angry himself. She had to deal with it. She was so angry. And now she lives with that shame of being angry. Just the shame of, shit, I carried this anger with me when I could have been loving him. Well, she did love him, and she cared for him immensely. But she still had anger. And it's a puzzle. It all weaves together. It's not a puzzle. It's a tapestry.
I completely identify with that shame.
Yeah.
Because I had to honor that thought was there too, simultaneously. And it was an interesting feeling to hold all of those feelings at the same time, and to allow myself to allow it to be okay to hold loving my kids with all of my being and being angry about being a mother and having shame about that anger all at the same time.
Yeah. And so that came out on day 2. Day 2. But just prior to that, you processed fear. There was a lot there that was revealed in those moments of fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, I think it was, I don't want to say successful, but I definitely think a lot was revealed and a lot was opened up, and Maybe not quite what you wanted.
Yeah, it definitely, the night of the second day, I guess the second night, because I went home the next morning.
That's how that works.
I had to have kind of a powwow with myself because I was worried that, not that I was wasting time, but that I wouldn't be taking advantage of this opportunity of this isolation and this seclusion to really go there with the anger and scream if I needed to scream, or flail if I needed to flail, or do all of the things that make us afraid to show anger. I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to take advantage of the time there. And so when it had come to the night of the second day and I still hadn't gone there, I really struggled with more feelings of guilt, of wasting time, and kind of its own anxiety of when will I be able to do this? And now I'm going to have to do it at home. The thing I was afraid to do, I'm going to have to do it at home. I'm going to have to go there. And just also at the same time, I just kind of came into agreement with myself, okay, this does not look like how I thought it was going to look like. And I realize now that I made an expectation. I should have never made an expectation. That I understand that whatever happened here is exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
Not necessarily what I wanted or what I thought was going to happen, but it was 100% what I needed.
Just the fact that you getting lost on the mountain, just, it presented you with the gift of, okay, here comes the anxiety. Yeah, exactly. And that your fear of being successful, I can so relate to that. I think lack of motivation comes from the fear of being successful, of following through. And that's me. I mean, I'm wearing that. I wear that. Yes. And so there's a lot in our previous conversations that we had of your current situations that are happening with you. It would be interesting to how much of what's happening, like that you're, I don't want to say allowing, but that you're holding on to because of the fear of being successful. Is that
a lot? Physically too.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. And the anger could be, it could be just another portion of that fear.
And it is. And I did realize that too. I thought maybe I skipped anger and just went right to fear, because ultimately everything either comes from fear or love.
100%.
So it's fear or love. One of the two is at the root of everything. So what's behind anger? It's hurt. It's fear. It's feelings of betrayal. Just so many negative emotions. Anger protects. It cocoons this wounded self. That's always what's behind anger. And one thing I've learned too, I have been doing, I know I've told you I've been doing this program and putting together this whole anger thing, because that's why we're together. That's why we're talking. Yeah. I have been doing calls and market research, and I'm trying to talk to at least 50 people before I really start putting the program together. And I'm about 16 people in right now.
Wow.
And I never realized the correlation between anger, suppressing your anger, and depression and anxiety. And it makes perfect sense, because when you're not speaking your truth and things feel hopeless, you're going to experience depression. And when you don't feel safe, and you're having all of these things pull your energy, and you are completely depleted emotionally and exhausted emotionally and physically, then you have anxiety. It's like, wow, I didn't realize how deeply the three were connected. But it makes sense now that I'm talking to people.
Mm-hmm. And is that something that you experience depression or anxiety or?
Anxiety now, because I realized that I was burning out a lot, but I'm really good at being, what do they call it? Having high functioning anxiety. I'm really efficient at that. And it's very sneaky. So I don't always realize when I'm doing it. But whenever I'm putting myself too thin, I don't think I'm Superwoman by any means, but I have this really weird perception of time that I think I just have so much more of it. Like I'm not the person who says I don't have enough time. I will use that as an excuse if I don't want to do something, but I don't actually feel like I don't have enough time. My problem is the opposite. I feel like I have so much time that I can handle this, and this, and I will overbook myself and not realize I'll say that this task is going to take me 30 or 45 minutes, and it takes me 2 hours. Mm-hmm. And now I'm behind on all of my appointments. I'm behind on all of my other tasks, and now I feel overwhelmed, and I'm having to rearrange things, and I just keep finding myself in that position. So when I'm spreading myself too thin and I'm not doing things for self-care to fill myself back up, that's when there's anxiety, because it's like I'm so thin that there's nothing. There's actually like a medical word for it, and I can't remember what it is, but it's like your nervous system is overloaded. And that's how I experience anxiety. But I used to experience depression so bad. And really from age 12 to 23, we'll say. Mm-hmm. That was because I wasn't speaking my truth. I wasn't living my truth, and I had a ton of anger that I was suppressing and I was swallowing, and I was not. I lived in victim mode. That's really what it was. I lived in victim mode during those years.
From what years? 12 to 18?
12 to roughly 23, 24.
Okay. So that was having children too.
Right.
Yeah.
That was being married, having children, going through my divorce. And really it was when I became a single mom, and I shifted out of depression by exchanging it for anxiety. And I went into high functioning anxiety because I was in tunnel vision survival mode. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until the last 3 years where when I got remarried, that I've now been at a safer place financially. I haven't had to go into survival mode. And then the last 2 years, going through the Diamond Process coaching program, and to now, that I've really been able to sit and work on myself and heal.
And think of all the people who, just when I have a hard time of going out into the world, because I feel there's such a heightened sense of anxiety and depression and fear, root fear, happening in our world. So I go to the grocery store and I walk into the grocery store and I'm like, yeah, I can't be here. And I turn and I leave. But there's so much, think about the fear of, I know so many people who don't have a job right now. They just, whatever their business, wherever they worked, is closed. And they may or may not be having unemployment, and there's such this heightened anxiety of everyday living. There's just a function. So when your basic needs are not being met, there's no way you can process all that other mojo stuff. So no wonder, like all these emotions are out there that we're feeling. And so this is the perfect time for you to do your workshop for.
Yeah. It's funny. I had another, we call them interviews, where I essentially am asking these questions, doing the market research. So I had an interview this morning, literally had that same conversation, is where she's at right now is survival mode. And she needs to meet her basic human needs, her basic human rights, and satisfy those and feel safe before she could do any other work. Because any work that she would do from here on out until those needs are met, it's just going to continue to overwhelm her. She has to meet the basic survival needs before going into, because you have to be safe.
Right.
You have to be at a safe place to go and start to do the healing.
And not even, think about, just using you as the example, here's a 7-year-old little girl still existing. It's so fearful. I'm going to lose my house again. If I get something I really want, if we get that dream house, we're going to frickin' lose it again. Oh my God. So the anxiety and the fear of that little girl is still there. So even though, however old you are, like, 25 or something, but even though, grown up adult have it together, Britta is functioning. There's that 7-year-old that's still in there, like, So we all have that, even, no wonder we're all messed up. But yeah, so did your clients prior, did you connect, what were your clients before you started doing the marketing research? Were they clients that had fear and anxiety?
Before doing this research, it was kind of all over the place, to be honest.
Yeah.
The common denominator, whether it was on the surface or whether it was buried deep, is self-love.
Okay. So I think your fear and your anxiety is part of your anger. I don't think they're all, I think they're all intertwined. I don't think it's separate.
Yeah.
I think, well, for everyone, not just you. It's not just, you're the special one. Only you.
I'm the only one that's screwed up.
Yes. I'm the only one. Everyone else can compartmentalize their, yeah. I have a client that will name all their parts. So like their anger part or their shameful part or their controlling side. So I've never done that before. So do you ever do that? Have you experienced that?
Mine don't have different names, but they look different. So the way that I have like mental images of them, they're me, but they're different. So I'm definitely going to cut this part out of it. But
okay, no, yes.
My darkest shadow self is like full on dominatrix. She does. She does.
My gosh.
She
and
she like wears leather.
Somehow I can totally see that. With the chain and the whip
she's the bad girl. She's all the shame. But she is strong in herself, and she's got this this is why I'm cutting this out of here. She's got this mentality where she's like, you don't love me, you're gonna push me away, you're gonna reject me as part of you, I'm gonna show you. And that's why she like takes control, and she's like this dominatrix.
And does it scare and does this part of you, this does it scare the other parts? Are there other parts of you that's like, what the hell is this?
The private school girl, little Christian private school girl, definitely afraid of her.
Okay, so with the skirt and the knee highs and the
right, yeah,
it's just like
because she thinks like not. So the versions of me, the ages of me that went to private school and were very much in the Bible, think that she's going to make us go to hell. But me now, I like her because I like
Yeah,
her
because she probably kept you
strength.
alive.
Yeah.
Totally.
I like her strength. I like her tenacity. I like her. She is the embodiment of female sexuality. Like, she is unashamed. She has anger issues, but she's unashamed.
Right. Well, she's angry, but she can rationalize and tell you exactly why she has anger issues.
Yeah.
Yeah,
she just wants to be accepted, and she's just angry if she's not accepted. She just wants to be accepted as she is, and she has value that she can bring that is not being utilized, and she's powerful, and she gets angry that it's not accepted or utilized.
So, did that part of you come out when you went away?
Yeah, I met her in the mountains. Yep.
Yeah. So, like, as you were talking, like, it would be so cool. I don't know how to do this. I'm just saying it. Let someone else. I'm putting it out there. To make a deck of cards of all of our pieces. You know, like the good little girl, and whatever part. I don't have too many. I might only have 5. I have 5 cards in my deck. But okay. Who am I going to be today?
Yeah. What part of me wants to be seen today?
Yeah, what part? I'll pull up
I like that.
I don't know. I wanted to go way back when you were talking the 7-year-old losing the house, and you want to go back to that 7, like, you know when people say the good old days? Like, they'll say, oh, it was so much better in the good old days. It was so much. Well, yeah, because you were innocent. That's what I think about. Like, my dad's good old, like when my dad was saying, I want to go back to the good old days. Well, those are my good old days. So that was like in the 70s. So in the 70s, my dad was saying, I want to go back to the good old days, which was probably the 50s.
Right.
And so for me, the 70s, that's how old I am. Probably, maybe not the 80s. The 80s, I was scared. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I was like, 80s were not 80s. Even though I got married in the 80s, late 80s, it wasn't a great time for me. So 70s, but it's because we're innocent. It's because we don't have all this, and I don't think all these, the fear. Now that's not everyone. I know some children who, by the age of 8, have more fears in their wagon than they should, and they probably never have had the good old days. But it's that innocence. So at 7, probably your innocence was.
Yeah, that was the end of it.
Yeah, it's like, wow, okay. So there goes that security blanket.
Yeah, literally what happened, it was, of course, when parents get divorced and your kids, it changes your life overnight. Just the sheer fact of your routine is completely changed. But for me, since we moved, I had all these friends that I would see every single day. We had this awesome yard. We had like this grass hill. As a kid, you don't think about these things. I'm sure that thing was a pain in the tail to mow. But all the neighbor kids would come over to our house, and we would roll down this grass hill, and we had this play structure that my grandpa built, and we just all, like, oh my gosh, like, you don't see neighborhoods like that so much anymore where there's so much kids and they all play together. And that was what we had, and I never got that back. I never had friends like that again. I can see, why she's scared. It's not just losing her house. It was losing her friends. It was losing her stability. It was losing her sense of self. And then the embarrassment and the shame that came after that. I used to, every time we moved to a new neighborhood, I didn't think it was sad at the time until people started laughing at me and pointing out like how ridiculous and pathetic it was. I would literally go door to door, and I would knock, and I would ask if they had kids. I would just introduce myself to the neighborhood and try to find friends.
That's adorable, though. You're like, and who told you it was pathetic?
Oh, my sisters and my family would laugh, you know.
That's because they weren't strong enough to do it. Yeah. I think it's adorable. Although now, okay, so there is a part of me, it's like, oh, geez, I wonder how safe that was. That's
oh, no, it was terribly unsafe.
Right, that's terribly. The mother.
Some of the places that we lived, I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys let me go over to these people's houses. Like, again, as a kid, these memories, I was like, you know, having fun. But thinking back, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that was a crack house. I am almost positive that was a crack house. Like, I would never. My kids, they wish they could. They wish they could walk around and see their friends. And no. I was able to walk miles by myself through. I mean, we lived in a very nice city, but things still happened. And I was able to take public transportation by myself when I was like 8th grade. So how old's 8th grade? 13,
like
14.
13, 14, yeah.
Yeah. Take the bus to the mall, meet up with my friends, walk all the way to the bus stop by myself, go to the transit center, switch to another bus, like, go downtown Portland, the capital of human trafficking, which I didn't know at the time.
Right.
I don't think any of us knew at the time, you know, what it was, but yeah.
And what year was this? Like 80, 90?
I think it was early 2000s.
Oh my gosh, I'm so old.
So 97, I was 10.
Oh my gosh, I'm so old.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
So 4 years later would be like 2001. So I was like 14. So like 2000, 2001.
Do you remember, speaking of that, like my daughter was like 6 on 9/11. That was a huge moment of her and my son. So my son was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He was 12. And my husband's from New York City.
Oh, wow.
And his best friend worked at in the World Trade Center. And
was he there?
He was there. Oh yeah, he was there. And for a period of time, he saw the second plane. He was down on the patio talking to my husband on the phone, and he saw the second plane go in. Oh. And my husband was telling him to leave. And you're in shock, you know.
Yeah.
So there was a period of time, and then the tower fell, and then we lost contact. But cell towers were going down, communication was being shut off. We didn't know we had no clue. And I was working at a high school, and you would walk down the hallway, and do you remember the old TVs where they would wheel the TVs in and plug them? Probably not, but okay.
Oh, yeah,
so
I do.
Okay, so some of the, like the teachers were like, some teachers had it, and other teachers actually had nice TVs on the wall at the time, but everyone had their TVs on, and I was so fearful that my son's school, he was in 5th grade, I didn't want someone to say something to him, because he would connect the fact that his godfather, my husband's best friend, is there. And we had other friends too. So I went and told him, because I wanted to be the one to tell him. And he and I both agreed. I remember here's this little guy, and I'm outside sitting on the floor in the hallway of his school and saying, I don't think we should tell Lizzie until we get home. And he's like, yes, okay. I said, so if they take you into I didn't know what was happening. No one knew. Like, are we in a state of emergency? Are they closing the school? And so she said, if they take, you go into the gym, or they put everyone together, please get Lizzie. Because Liz knew too. Liz knew the World Trade Center. We'd been in the World Trade Centers. She understood all that. And she knew that Daryl worked there. and he was a huge part of our family. And so nothing happened. We got home, but that was huge for her. That's a huge moment for her. That, and then, yeah. And then Daryl ended up, he had walked home. He walked from Lower Manhattan out into Queens.
Wow.
Like covered in ash, and he's really. And my kids know that. Like, my kids know that happened, and what he is now, what their godfather is now, and what he's doing. And so I think we all have, like, throughout our life, I think we all have those moments where, whether we're 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever, where we lose that innocence.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what mine is. Really. I'm such a late bloomer. I think mine was like at 19 when I realized everything people had told me, it's all a freaking lie. Like, I think that was mine. I'm like, wait a minute. You mean there's no Santa? Take that out, okay? What do you mean there's no Santa? You mean what? It's my parents. No. I don't know I'm sure if I went back and, like, thought about it, I would know,
Do you feel like you have a level of PTSD from 9/11?
No. No. I think that in other areas of my life, probably not that one. I'm sad. I'm sad that we lost several friends. I feel sad for my children. I feel sad for Dan's best friend, for sure. I mean, I will say, though, that right after, like, the next day, we live in an area just of where we live, planes, from all over the United States. They fly, when they go to Europe, they fly up around, so they go to the northern part of the United States, up northern part of the Atlantic, and then they dip back down into Europe. So if you look at a flight pattern, they don't just, like, fly across. Even from Atlanta, they don't just fly. They go up and around. So we have a lot of airplanes that fly over. And it became silent, like, quiet. Like, that to me was more unsettling, oddly enough. It's all this, I felt very alone. And that's so bizarre because I like being out in the woods and I like to be alone. But this felt very, like, really, it was very quiet. And then I remember hearing, like, airplanes fly over, and they were military planes. And that did freak me out a little. I remember calling my dad. I'm like, yeah. But I think for me, actually, probably it was because, again, late 70s, early 80s, we were in the Cold War. We were understanding what a nuclear bomb would actually do, like if we dropped one, like, or Russia or whatever. And so we used to have those silly drills where we'd go out into the hallway at school and put our heads down, cover our heads. Like, it's not going to do anything, like, we didn't know that. But and then I vividly remember, like, graduating high school, going to college, thinking, I wonder if I'll graduate college because we're probably going to be bombed. And then seeing the movie, I saw it when I was in college, The Last Testament, which is really old. It's not that great of a movie, but it kind of explained, like, what possibly could happen. And if a bomb had been dropped, the radiation poisoning and what it means and the whole thing. It happened. Like, it was a story. It was a story, a movie. And I remember leaving, it was the Essex in Boston, and walking out like, okay, all right, we're still here. Okay. I mean, but just laying in bed that night, a top bunk, scared to death of my roommate, but that's another whole story. But just laying in my bed, top bunk, thinking, wow, I'm probably not going to ever get married. Wow. And I was like, that's so sad. And yeah, I'm probably never going to have kids. You know. So to me, I think that probably was more traumatic. So when we get into these, like, when I hear on the news, and I don't really watch the news, but when these conflicts, you know, I'm like, oh, like North Korea. Oh, okay, here we go. Yep, here we go. This is it. I knew it. Here we go. This is it. You know, so that to me probably more so than 9/11. I don't know why, but
yeah.
I
mean, that makes sense. That was a very real possibility back then.
It was, and I remember when. Okay, so let me think. This was not a history buff, so anyone who's a history buff is going to cringe. I think it was in '89 that the Berlin Wall came down. 88, 89-ish. Do you know? Probably not. You weren't. You were like. Okay, yeah, do. You were probably 4.
2.
Oh my gosh. I so could be your mother. I just want you to know that. Yes.
November 9th, 1989.
Oh, okay. I remember realizing, okay, wow, I think we're actually at peace. Like, this is what peace looks like. And like sobbing, crying. Like, yeah. Like, okay, here we go. And I remember exactly where we were living. I remember the couch we were sitting on. It was hideous. Dan and I had been married for a couple of years. And I remember breathing, like taking like you know, like when you have a tight jaw and you know your jaw is tight and you relax your jaw, like, oh, okay. It was like, oh, I can breathe. Like it was that deep breath I had taken when the Berlin Wall was coming down. And I think it was, now I'm really dating myself. I think it was Peter Jennings was the anchor that we were listening to, watching it come down. It was just, yeah. I haven't really had moments like that. I've chosen not to. I've chosen, like, it doesn't matter. I'm just not going to build myself back up to that anxiety level again. Even with COVID, like, me not wanting to go out into the world has nothing to do with me being afraid that I'm going to get COVID or I'm going to get sick. I just don't want to deal with all the emotions that are out there. That's just going to stay home and seal myself up in my Ziploc bag and I'm going to be okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, 9/11 was the first time that I ever, what's the word? I just had it too. Projected my consciousness. 9/11 was the first time I ever projected my consciousness. And I didn't know what I was doing when I did it either. But I put myself on the plane. And I saw it as it came towards the tower and as it entered the tower. And I saw what I perceived the passenger saw coming towards them. If the plane went in through the front and you're sitting in the back, what do you see coming towards you as you hit the tower? And if I'm honest with myself, I think that that's a contributing factor of why I'm afraid to fly. Because it was so vivid. I don't know if I projected my consciousness into the actual plane or if I projected my consciousness into an actual passenger. I'd like to think I didn't. But either way, I projected my consciousness into my perception of what I thought they might have seen.
And how old were you?
So that was 2001, right?
Yeah.
So I was 13, 14, somewhere in there.
Wow. It's interesting. I I thought more about the people who were home, and this is rough, waiting for their loved ones to call that never did. Like that to me, like, so my husband's a fireman, and he goes out on these calls, and I never know, like, if he's, like what he handles is like not 9/11-ish, but
how many hats does your husband wear? Jeez.
well, okay, this is a volunteer. So we live in a small community. So the firemen are not, only the chief and assistant chief and whatever are paid. All the other members of the department they get paid like, I don't even know. They have to because of insurance reasons, but it's all volunteer. So if you want to show up, you do, and if you don't, you don't. You're not on a rotation or a schedule. You just get a beeper, and if your beeper goes off and you can go, you go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of his hats he wears. But so when the beeper goes off and he leaves and I'm home alone, you just wait for him to get that text saying, okay, we're done, heading home. And it can be 20 minutes, it can be 20 hours.
Yeah.
And so I know that anxiety. And actually, he actually did not even join the department until after 9/11. That was his, like, he wanted to do that. He wanted to give back to society in some way. That's what he decided to do. He really wanted to join, like, the army or something. And we're like, they're not going to take you. You're old. You're overweight. You have a family. What are you doing? So he joined the fire department instead. But that was my knowing that there were people there waiting. And
yeah.
But
there's some heavy topics today.
I know. We went from 7-year-old losing their security to 9/11, Berlin Wall.
They're all valid, though.
They're all. I mean, and the fear that comes with it. Like, yeah. Your fear of flying, fear of being successful, fear of losing what you have. Yeah.
I can say they've never stopped me. Not really. If I can possibly drive somewhere, I will. I don't care if it takes me 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. If I'm able to drive, I will. But I will also fly. And I have many, 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 many times since then. I just jumped up on the desk.
And that is it's interesting, I mean, because your human part of you completely has taken on this fear. But you at a higher level of consciousness get it, like, okay, if I'm supposed to, this is it, this is, it's going to happen on an airplane. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die, and this is what it is, and da-da-da-da. But your human part's like, what the hell? I am not getting on that airplane. Okay, I'm on the airplane. I'm hyperventilating. Okay, I'm taking my drug. I don't know if you take, I'm taking my NyQuil, and I'm going to sleep.
Funny story. I used to take Xanax when I flew, and one time I didn't know what happened to me. I thought Xanax was just fantastic because I thought I take Xanax and I just go to sleep and I wake up when we land and it's just wonderful. I loved Xanax, but I had been flying by myself. Yeah, so I did not know what Xanax actually did to me. I thought it just put me to sleep. I thought that I was just nicely in my chair and then we land and I wake up and we're good to go. No. Then my husband flew with me and I found out that I do things when I think I'm asleep. And I say things when I think I'm asleep. And people are actually very concerned about me when I take Xanax. So I had walked through an airport with my pants down.
Oh my God.
I had shorts on underneath, but I had sweatpants over the shorts. So I'm walking, and this lady had to tell me that my pants are down. And I'm like out of it, and I just reached down and pulled them up and didn't say thank you to her or nothing. Like, so rude. No clue that my pants are down. And while I was on the plane, this is when I was flying with my husband, I tried to snuggle with the person next to me that was not my husband.
Was it a man?
No, it was a female. It was like, how many people have I snuggled with when I was by myself?
You might have flown with my husband because, I don't know, this would have been, let me think when would, but my husband had that happen to him.
Be gracious with these people because they might be on Xanax. I don't know. And then I was like telling, like, I guess the stewardess came to get our drink orders, and I'm like telling her like how much I love my husband and how amazing he is, and she just looked at him. She's like, "Is she okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, she's fine." But he had to like keep getting me away from the person that I'm trying to snuggle with, not him. So after that, I was too afraid. Even though Xanax for me made it a much more enjoyable experience, and I was like, this is my gift from God. Like, I can fly again without fear. Mm-hmm. I had to stop taking it because I was too scared of like I fly by myself most of the time because I was flying for work, mm-hmm. and my husband couldn't go with me on work trips. So I was like, I can't take this. I just have to like have a drink and hope that helps take the edge off of it and just deal with the fear and the terror, because mm-hmm. I don't want to come to and I've got handcuffs on, you know. I don't know. Indecent exposure accidentally. I don't know. Like, I couldn't trust that. It was just scary. Like, to do things and not be aware or have any memory that you did them is kind of scary. So I stopped taking it. But yeah, the funniest one by far was the poor lady. Like, I was just so rude. Didn't say anything to her. Just pulled my pants back up and kept on trucking.
My brother is afraid of flying. He has this, and when I think it was his mother-in-law passed, his wife was already in Texas with the family. And so he and his girls were flying to meet her. And so it was he was flying alone with his two daughters, and they were maybe 10 and 12-ish. And he took it, I think it's NyQuil that he takes. But he was so afraid, like, if I lose you. So he wrote with a permanent marker, like, his information on their names. On their arms. And they're like, Dad. He's like, no, I have to do this. So, we think of us, we laugh. So we laugh about, like the traumatic thing. We don't laugh. We're laughing about this. But these are the things that, like, also, there's a part, like, they're losing, like, their innocence as well. You know, like, these are things they look at while they can laugh at it. Yeah, my dad wrote all this information in permanent marker. You know, 4 days later, they're at a funeral and they have to wear, long sleeves because they've been tattooed and it's sweating because it's Texas. But, it's, and I've done things. And my mother has done things to me, and I've had things done to me that we laugh about. I have a fear of not flying, because I just think, and, brace yourself for this, but I think if a plane goes down, it's going to go so quick. Like, I'm either going to survive or I'm just going to be dead. There's no, the chances of it, like,
it's becoming not the impact that I'm afraid of. It's the knowing it's coming. 20 seconds of. Like 20 minutes of falling. Yeah. Like, just.
Yeah. I don't know.
The anticipation. Mm-hmm. Like, do you remember? I think you were there for this call. I can't remember for sure. But do you remember in my class, can you believe that it's been they're graduating tomorrow?
I know.
Class. This is crazy. But for my class, do you remember when Veronica, when I was really struggling with anxiety and fear, and she took me through my worst case scenario, and she's like, okay, well then what? And then what?
Yes.
And it got to where the root of the fear was me not even dying alone, but just being alone in nothingness. But that initial fear was something catastrophic happening, and I would freeze frame it because I was too afraid of the event. But what kept me frozen in this perpetual state of fear and this feeling of doom and gloom was the anticipation of the event. The anticipation is much more torturous for me than the event. And that's what I fear when I'm on a plane. That's what I felt when I projected my consciousness onto that flight that went into the World Trade Center, is sitting in the back. I wasn't in the front, wasn't the people in the cockpit, was somebody sitting in the back and watching it as it came towards you and being powerless to do anything to stop it. And that's what I felt, and that's what I feel every time. It's like I'm frozen and I'm gripped in this terror anticipation.
That's so cool. So it's not cool. It's not cool. But
screw you too.
But you were powerless and watching it happen, and you had no control. So that's the same thing. 7-year-olds watching your house go, watching your parents separate. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then not knowing, now what's going to happen. And so you taking control, it's okay, I'm going to go knock on all these people's doors, and I'm going to find somebody to be my friend. I'm going to take this to the annex, and I'm going to I don't know what's going to happen. But yeah. We're kind of on autoplay in our head, in our life we keep doing these. These are the lessons. They're just going to keep happening until we learn them. Yeah. That was from last time. Yeah. That's cool. I don't have a fear of dying in an airplane. I have a fear of, I have a lot of fears, but I have a fear of being in a gondola, in a big, a gondola full of people, and when you go on a ski lift.
Oh, yeah, those things.
Yeah, I would much rather be in an open chairlift. I'm okay on a chairlift. You sit and the bar comes down and your feet dangle. So okay, because if something happens, I have this irrational, it's going to be okay because I'm going to lift up the bar and I'm going to jump out. But if I'm stuck in this, gerbil wheel that's attached to cables, we're going to roll down the mountain and crash with all these people screaming, and I don't want that. That's not how I want to die, with people screaming. No. But oddly enough, I don't think about that as in an air, when I get in an airplane, I'm not I'm getting in a silver tube with wings, and it's the same thing. It's odd. Never ever.
Any of it.
The only time I've been
enclosed spaces with height, I don't like any of it.
Yeah, I've only a few times been afraid, a little fearful of an airplane. Oh, this isn't cool. And once, it was on our honeymoon, coming back, I think, we dropped quickly in the sky, and we had a storm, and we dropped so quickly that the oxygen things popped down.
Oh wow!
But they said, "No, we're good. But we had to land anyways because we couldn't fly with these things dangling. But that was one time, and another time it was an electrical storm. We were sitting on the tarmac in a metal tube, and lightning is coming. I'm okay, there's something not right now. Can't we just go inside that building? No, we couldn't, because the people couldn't be out on the tarmac to bring us in. So meanwhile, there's 200 people sitting in this metal tuna can getting zapped by electricity. And I'm like, oh, yeah. That's it. Those are really the 2 times that I can think of. Yeah. But yeah, put me in a gerbil wheel, gerbil ball with cables, and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, I was thinking about at some point in my life taking flying lessons so that if something were to happen, then I felt like I could
be in control
and like safely land the plane or assist or something. Like, I don't know if that'll help or not, but it's a control thing for sure.
My husband he is, I don't know what he is, but and unfortunately my poor daughter is there with him. They have, everything is great, but you have plan A and plan B for everything. So we get on an airplane, and my husband knows exactly. And he's taught this to the kids, and now I do it without even acknowledging that I'm doing it. I get on, and I'll count how many seats. Like, even though I'm in row 10, it might only be 6, but I know exactly, like, to count how many seats I pass, or, like, that I'm going to touch. Or when I go to a hotel, how many doors do I pass for the stairwell, not the elevator.
Right.
The stairwell.
This is like fire safety.
Fire safety, or if there's a danger, like to know exactly. Yeah. Little things like that. Yeah. My husband, like when we go into a very large restaurant, he knows exactly. He will scan around and look for the exit. And I'm like, I swear somewhere, like in his past lives, he's had to like escape from something. It was Houdini, because he does this. This is a big thing for him. And we just can't. Yeah. So now the kids do that. Like my daughter knows. She gets on an airplane. She'll count 1, 2, 3, 4. And, she'll know like how many, like to the nearest exit, or that's the anxiety, but it's his way of feeling in control.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me, I get on the airplane like, oh, I don't know. They'll ask me, did you have a nice seat? No, I don't know. I was like on the window. But no. All right. This is good.
I'll keep you posted on my journey as it continues.
Oh, yes. I think it mirrors the majority of people, so that's good.